Hey, good evening. It's Thursday night, and every Thursday, 9 p.m. at the same time, we discuss crown rules, a woman's journey to a throne, a woman's journey to the throne. And just to say, Thursday night for us is our crown rules night, where we discuss this beautiful young lady's work and her collection of crown rules. So we kind of made Thursday our designated night for this. And tonight is a it's a very interesting night because I think that a lot of times we don't take serious the title or the subject matter of what we're going to discuss tonight, which is our sphere of influence, episode 14. And we are
Yes,
winding down, Miss Dozier.
yes, we are, Quentin. This time has gone by exceptionally fast.
Yes, 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 yes.
Mhm.
Um, Last week we didn't have a show because there was some traveling going on, and this week we want to discuss sphere of influence. Explain what on a bigger scheme what the sphere of influence mean.
So, it's a sphere of influence is a term that I learned in school while I was studying business and decision how we come to make decisions. And it really has to do with the forces outside of your sphere, your center, that contribute to the decisions that you make. Now, it's used in global studies to talk about, for instance, United States would be a sphere, but a sphere of influence would be maybe Canada or Mexico. So the events that happen in either Canada or Mexico may influence what happens within the United States. Also, what happens in the United States may affect what happens in Canada or Mexico, but to a lesser degree. I don't know if you remember some time ago, there was an issue regarding pharmaceutical drugs and how much America was charging for them, and the fact that Canada was basically giving drugs away, and how people were going to Canada to get their medications, and that
Hmm.
influenced what was happening in the United States, like reducing the expenditure on pharmaceuticals here. So, good evening, King. So, it's really the sphere of influence on a larger scale is about how those countries outside of one another can influence another country.
Okay, so you decided to we always talk about placement in the book, and I know that you decided to place this here. Let's get into your why. Let's get into why
Why?
you decided to place it there.
This section of the book is entitled maturation, which means that okay, we've become clear on love. We've become clear on the importance of our heart. We've become clear on the importance of our purpose, and now we're adjusting to a new identity, which is like really important, I think, to be able to understand what contributes to your identity. And this section or this chapter on your sphere of influence is really about understanding what contributes to your identity. A lot of times it can be your gender, how you identify sexually, which is like everybody's losing their mind lately over that. It could also be your upbringing, the culture that you're in, the community that you're in, what kind of work you do. So your identity can be formed around a lot of different things, and those are part of your sphere of influence. But more importantly, your identity is formed, or is more greatly formed by the people that you have around you. Who's around your sphere? We call it a circle, we call it a clique, whatever. I call it your sphere of influence because the things that they say can impact your identity or what you think about yourself.
Okay, so you discussed something I thought was very interesting,
Hmm.
and let me just refresh my memory. And you discussed what you had titled the speakers.
Yes.
Let's get into that.
Okay, so the beginning of the chapter has a quote that I think is very important to latch on to before we get into the speakers. And what it says is spoken words feed the soul, maintain a healthy diet.
Mm.
So, sometimes we are either open to or we shy away from people who have different ideas than we do, or people who give us lessons. We talked about Kevin Samuels and like his approach and how he approaches communication with people, like that brutal honesty. Sometimes we either open to it or we shy away from it. But I think the thing that's important to know is that every word that is spoken into your ear has an impact on your perception, your understanding. And when it comes to identity, you really have to know who you're talking about or who's talking to you, and how they're feeding their soul, how they're planting that seed that you created for yourself. So I identify 5 different speakers: the anointed, the appointed, the allowed, the adversarial, and the abusive.
So let's talk about the appointed. The anointed, I mean, excuse me.
The anointed. So the anointed, and this is just based on my understanding of different conversations that people have. Like I really am big on communication styles, how people communicate, when they choose to communicate. So I pay a lot of attention to that.
Calling a thing a thing.
Calling a thing a thing. And based on what I've identified and observed is that the anointed are usually people who speak to you in a loving way or an empowering way or a strengthening way. And they usually give you wisdom, guidance, or counsel. And you're able to receive that because you have a trusting relationship with them. You know that they have your best interests at heart, but they also have this wisdom that they can impart to you. And it's really important to get that, especially when you talk about mentors, or if you're involved in faith in a faith-based organization, and you have someone that you go to that can keep you encouraged or keep you in focus or talk to you about how to use your gifts better. Those I consider are anointed, and they usually fulfill that purpose and that purpose alone.
So usually, like we always discuss mentorship, having somebody basically having your ear. Um, how you would use them as like the anointed one, or that in your circle of, let's just say your circle of advisors,
Yes,
for
yes.
lack of better words. So you would a lot of times people get mentors and they get mentors for certain things. Um, what was the next one?
The next one is the appointed.
Mm,
And I like this group of people. So the appointed are people who you have decided to align yourself to because number one, they may have the same interests as you. Number two, you're able to bounce ideas off of each other. And so whatever you're focusing on, you're able to improve in that. And it's like you have decided for yourself that these are the people that you will go to when you're working on something, when you want to improve something, when you have certain goals, and you trust them because based on how they move and the things that you've seen them do, you know that they are dedicated, they're committed, they're honest, and they will have honest conversation with you because they want the best for you.
mm. Okay, okay. The allowed.
The allowed, I find the allowed to be people who don't necessarily bring like a high level of value to your life, but they don't take away anything either. It's like you can have friendly conversation with them. You can talk about what's going on. You can debate ideas. It's like you can have this conversation. You don't speak to them frequently, but when you do have a conversation with them, it's a nice conversation. You get to share, exchange ideas. Nothing is lost. Nothing is really gained, but nothing is lost.
Number 4.
The adversarial. These are people that have an issue with everything that you do.
They have a what?
An issue with everything that you do. They will argue you down on nothing. On nothing.
Uh,
And you know, huh?
no, no, no. Finish.
In looking at the conversation and observing the conversation, a lot of times the reason why they are so adversarial is based on the conversation that they generally have with themselves about themselves. So they tend to not see themselves as good enough. They tend to not see the usefulness of dreams or goals or aspirations. They tend to see um wastefulness in everything that you do that might be positive, right? And it's just that they have either a low self-esteem or a very negative outlook on life. And because they do, they bring that to you in their conversation all the time.
And lucky number five.
The abusive.
Mm,
Um, so I find with the abusive, the people who speak to you in an abusive manner, number one,
that's the talk to me nice type of. As we always say, we have a problem. A lot of people have problems. It's not what they say; it's how they say it. So talk to me nice, because if you say it the wrong way, it could be. I might use all types of hands and feet on you.
I mean, I think a lot of times with the abusive, they're just waiting for an opportunity to pounce on you, right? They really
Mm.
don't have a genuine love or concern about you. I think sometimes, even when we have disagreements with people or we get into arguments with people, like in the back of our mind, we remember that we love them and we remember that the relationship with them is important, right? When it comes to those people who have a tendency to be abusive, to put you down, to bring up your flaws, to talk about your past when you weren't talking about it, to just try to make you feel really bad, they really don't have any genuine care or concern for you, but they could still be within your sphere of influence or your circle. So you have to be aware. If you have a conversation with them and you walk away feeling depleted or
Oh,
hurt,
so the abusive would be like the energy vampire, a person that just comes around you and just sucks all the energy out of the air, out of the room, and you be like, "Yo, I was just in a good mood, and they came within my sphere of influence, and now I'm edgy, I'm jittery, my thoughts all over the place just because they brought the negative energy."
it could be you could be sitting down minding your business and your phone may ring or a text may come in with that person's name on it and you already feel depleted and you haven't even spoken to them yet, but based on the history of the conversation with them, you know, even if they don't do it on that call, it has the potential to go down.
So I noticed in your 5 A's, and the 5 A's are speakers, and for everybody that just joined, Julia has identified five speakers in the sphere of influence. The first is the anointed, appointed, allowed, adversarial, and the abusive. So I noticed going further in the reading, you said that a person, an individual, can be one, a couple, or all of them at the same time. Explain what you mean by that, because I actually do agree with that.
I think that, you know, again, and being very observant and paying attention, like we can have people that can give us wisdom and give us guidance and support us in our goals or our dreams or let us have those general day-to-day conversations with them. But there can also be times where they'll have issue with everything that you do, or catch them on a good day, they feel like it's okay to speak negatively to you or to speak against your soul. And it could be the same person. And I think for me, it's just important to be aware of that because, you know, we tend to value people that we have in our lives and we tend to value the relationships that we have, but we have to also understand how the people that we value are speaking to us. And if we don't, if it's someone that we love, we care for, we want to keep the relationship going, but we notice that they can tend to be adversarial or abusive, we need to be able to have that conversation with them about, sometimes when you say this, it doesn't make me feel good. And the reason why this is in this part of the book is because we're getting ready. We've gone through all of the principles, and now we're getting ready to sit on our throne. And when you are approaching your throne and you're sitting on your throne and you're governing your territory and you're managing and monitoring everything that happens around you, you have to be aware of how people are speaking into you, because one bad conversation can throw you off your square.
Mm. So, say that again.
One bad conversation can throw you off your square.
So with that, we're going to take a commercial break. Got I have a sponsor. So as people in the chat may have seen, that's that is a commercial. Julia's commercial. Julia has another book coming out in August called "How Black Women Love" is Crown Rules 3. So Nicole asked a question or made a statement. She said, "As for those negative people, you have to distance yourself, especially after you have addressed their behavior." Um, I'm not saying that Nicole is wrong, but let me ask you, Julia, when you discuss your sphere of influence, or you know you have a sphere of influence, and you have your 5 A's, you realize that the person can be the appointed one today or the allowed one today, and then tomorrow be the abusive one. Do you think this is the balance that an individual needs?
A balance in terms of understanding it and having that conversation with them, or
Or just um we could say a person calling you on your stuff.
so I do think that we need to have people that call us on our stuff, and I do think that we need to have people that hold us accountable, right? And can be honest with us about what they think and what they feel. But I think that there's a way that you need to approach that, right? You have to know not only what you're saying it and how you're saying it, but you also have to know who you're talking to and how they're going to receive what you're saying. A lot of times I think, and I think it starts in childhood, parents have one way of communicating, right? And so let's say a parent has multiple children. If they have just one way of communicating with three different children, that same message is not going to get across to all three of those children, because those three children have different ways of hearing information, receiving information, and knowing what to do, what's required to do next. And so the job of a parent is to understand, okay, I need to speak to this child in this way. I need to have this kind of conversation with this child. I need to make sure that I do this for this other child, right? Because the thing is, you don't want the message to be missed. So if you don't want the message to be missed, you have to understand how to communicate it to that other person.
And it speaks about the wisdom of the elder, the wisdom of the mentor. When you said that the appointed is usually an elder,
Mm-hmm.
and usually the elder, I mean, a mentor, right? And
Mm-hmm.
for those that got mentors in the chat, you guys kind of can know what I'm talking about. Your mentor has a way of saying something that's not real wordy, as we would say. That's not a long speech, but it'll make you feel this small when you've done something this small. When they call you out, and this is the hikmah, the wisdom. I just used the Arabic word. This is the
Mm-hmm.
wisdom that they use when they're addressing you, and you're getting that. that counsel, that advice. Um, and it's crazy because like when you said it, when you get to know them, and when they know you and know how you respond to the advice, um, you may take it as abusive at first and be like, hold up, I'm bugging. I know this person cares about me. I know this person has my best interest. They just calling me on my stuff when I need to be called on it. Do you think that we have enough people that's appointed and allowed in our circle to really push us to our throne? Because a lot of times we'll get in a position where we're real comfortable and complacent.
I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think that we have enough of the anointed and the appointed in our circles. I think that there's some people who are, but I think the majority of us don't. I think the majority of us are used to having like surface conversations that don't really get to the matter of the heart of anything, right? Where I think that a majority of us are used to arguing for our position and defending our limitations.
Mm,
And I think that a majority of us have been brought up or have lived in environments where we haven't had healthy, loving, gentle communication so that we could tell the difference between somebody calling us on our stuff and somebody trying to drag us in the mud. I don't think that we've had enough of that. And so the purpose of the chapter, the second part of this chapter, is to help you focus on people that you can bring into your sphere so that you can have those kinds of conversation. Do you know that there was a post on Facebook the other day where someone was asking, did you grow up in a household where you were told that you were loved? And there were over 1,000 comments, and 70% of them, the answer was no.
mm.
But they were like, but we could see it in this and we could see it in that and that. You shouldn't have to decipher
Yeah,
how
the question was very specific. It said, "Were you told that you
were
were
you
loved?"
told that you were loved? And you shouldn't have to try to decipher if you're loved. It's something that should be communicated to you. It's something that should be consistent, and it's something that you should be able to see in actions as well. But a lot of that comes from how you're communicated to. And as you're on your throne and you're working in this new identity, you got to be careful how people speak to you. Some people, it takes them like a day or more to recover from a bad conversation. Ain't nobody got that time.
So let me ask you, like, when do you think that, like, well, you like I said, a lot of us get complacent and we get what we would consider comfortable. But then you may realize, like, you know what, I'm not growing. I'm not growing emotionally. I'm not growing spiritually. I'm not growing financially. I owe myself more to life than I'm getting. So you try to get yourself in those uncomfortable situations to make you feel more comfortable. Do you think you need that voice or that sphere of influence that's going, because we talked about, I know I don't want to harp on the abusive part, because that's the type of person that will just, like as we say, they'll get their sick shit off on you when the opportunity happens. Let me look at my categories here. Your categories. Let's say the adversarial, the
Mm-hmm.
one that always want to just, because we have those antagonistic people that we may know through social media, that we may have in our immediate lives, that they're just sickening. They're just drama filled every time you turn around. When their name pops up on a post, if you get the alert, if you're on social media with them, their name pops on a post, you just be like, oh.
I kind of, in my personal life, I have a few adversarial people. And I've learned to, number one, distance myself from them because I don't have time for it, right? Like, get your kicks off somewhere else. But the other thing is that sometimes I do enjoy speaking to them. And the reason why I enjoy speaking to them is because while they're being adversarial, they're trying to kind of like pick you apart and kind of like tell you what you're doing doesn't have value, or just whatever they could say to just try to like break you down, right? But then they always tell you they love you at the end. I like talking to them sometimes because it lets me know how solidified I am in who I am and my position and my character. Like, I don't give into it where I may have before. I may have believed it, right? But now I understand that that conversation is about them, and it just makes me feel more solid in who I am. But I
Do you
still
th-
try to
do
stay
you
away
think
from
that
those.
you think I'm actually do you think that because you always hear a lot of people be like, the adversarial, let's just say that individual is what we consider the hater. Um, and you always hear a lot of people be like, I ain't gonna let the haters do this, or I'm doing this for my haters. And I always thought that was strange that we would give or people would give that much energy to a hater. I mean, even mentioning their name, I'm a firm believer. If I don't like somebody, I won't mention their name. I won't type their name. Their thought process, their well being will never come out my mouth. I will never mention who I dislike or I just don't care for. And I think that a lot of times we give energy to that very same hater or adversarial person in our sphere of influence. How does a person have that much influence in your life if you know that they're so antagonistic or adversarial to what you're doing?
Because we have to pay attention to what we're told. I think my favorite comedian, Cat Williams, um, in the Pimp Chronicles. One of the lines that he said,
Feel free to hate on me.
he said, he said, ladies, he said, y'all complaining about how many haters y'all got. He said, if you got 14 haters right now, you need to figure out how to get like 4 more before the but like that's the that's kind of like how we've been the messaging behind haters, right? That if you have haters, that means that you're doing something good, and like keep doing good stuff so you could get more haters. And it's like, wouldn't you rather have people who are celebrating you and congratulating you and trying to, get down with what you're doing in your circle, as opposed to trying to see who you can make jealous of you
I
today?
mean, me personally, I always thought it was odd that a person would be so influenced by their hater that this would motivate them to do their whatever they're doing. I never thought that was right. I would think that a person would be more motivated to do what they're doing because this is what they believe in, this is what they feel, this is their love, this is their passion, so they do it. Not
But
be so motivated to do it that you're doing it to piss your haters off. I just
but
always thought that was odd.
that's like the group think of our culture in our community, is that if you don't have people that hate you, you're not doing well. If you're not driving the best car and people are not envious of that, you're not doing well. If you don't have the best body or the prettiest face and people are not hating on you, you're not doing well. That's the mentality of our culture, which is really kind of sick. Like, and it's sick because it has people doing things that they're not intrinsically wanting to do. They're doing those things because they want the attention and they want people to think that they're better than everyone else.
So this is one of the ways how we have lost our way, and we need to bring it all the way back down to doing what makes you happy, having that contentment and fulfillment in your heart for being at peace with yourself, being rich. And I'm not talking about the financial rich. I'm talking about being rich in the content or the or what you're doing. Like if you have a job or whatever or a place of employment, being content and not settling if that's not what you want, but being like, you know what, it could be worse. And it's always like the glass half filled or the glass half empty person. Some people think the glass is half full. Some people think it's half empty. And it's interesting what type of person and how you perceive that glass, how you view a life, your view of the world, and what goes on.
And my view personally is I need more glasses. I can't just be working off of one glass and looking at that one glass and seeing where it's at. I need multiple glasses, but the perspective is everything. Perspective is everything. And a lot of times I think, it's good to have the people that will challenge you, but that challenge you in a healthy way. And it's good to know you have posted in the group about, how do you manage your insecurities? And for me, your insecurities are a very personal thing. They have nobody outside of you can fix them, but you have to be aware that how people speak to you or how people treat you or how people tell you who you are, right? Because people love to do that. How people tell you who you are has influence on your identity if you choose to believe it, if you don't have a strong sense of self.
Yeah, strong sense of self, right? The thing was, I'm a firm believer that a lot of us have insecurities. I believe everybody has an insecurity. It's not a bad thing to have an insecurity. Um, the things that the things that make you who you are may have given you that insecurity. And I just think that a lot of times we project our insecurities off on other people, whether it's your mate, whether it's your friends, whether it's your coworkers or whatever. And in that is that I believe that the only way that you can get through those insecurities or defeat them or conquer them is not to project them off on nobody else. That if you have them, you got to deal. That you can't continue to just push them to the side. You got to deal with them. And we tend to, well, I'm insecure about these issues, so let me stay in my comfort zone. And eventually, those insecurities, you're going to get put in I believe that you'll get put in a situation that those insecurities are going to come to an head, and then you're going to have to deal with them. And then the projection, it may affect, like I said, your mate, your friends, your family, your coworkers, to a point where it's now negative because they're your insecurities and you've never dealt with them. And sometimes best if you have insecurities, sometimes good to just talk to people about them. Like, I'm insecure about, like, it could be a job. You could be overqualified for a job, but job interviews drive you crazy. I know for me, I'm not a good tester. um I kind of psych myself out before I take the test. Like, I can't do this, and I'll study. I can retain information very well, but when it comes to test and timely test, I just don't test well, and
And so, I'm sorry.
and I get real insecure. My palms get sweaty. I'll be like bugging, start looking at watches and clocks and all that stuff. Like, oh, I'm insecure. I don't think I did it, and then I'll be worried. Did I complete the test or whatever? So, but that's like I said, that is my issue, my insecurity. I have to be able to be comfortable enough to be like, I studied, I prepared, and just put your best foot forward in getting past that particular aspect of an insecurity.
And that's what I was talking about yesterday. Like, I don't see that as an insecurity. Like, for me, I'm into calling a thing a thing. And to me, an insecurity is an area or an aspect of yourself that you are not satisfied with.
Hmm.
So, in that example that you gave, it's not that you're insecure about testing. It's that based on your past experience, you don't believe that you're going to do well. You have done everything that you needed to do to conquer that insecurity about the testing in terms of studying, preparing, being aware of the time. You've done everything. So you've addressed that. The only thing you haven't addressed is the fear. And the fear is different than an insecurity. You've done everything that you need to do to address the insecurity. The fear, and you won't be able to like really conquer it until you like ace the test, right? And believe in your ability. But the fear is, I might not do good on this because of my past experience. That's different than an insecurity.
Yeah.
You've done everything.
Yeah. Yes, I thought it was interesting. So, is there anything else you wanted to discuss in reference to this portion of the book?
The first part of the chapter talks about the different kind of speakers, and the second part of the book talks about bringing people into your sphere. Like, we can be not only intentional about the conversations that we're having with others or the conversations that they're having with us, but we can also be intentional about the people that we create within our sphere. And I think it's important that we always have people who are older than us, both male and female, to fulfill that appointed role, or that anointed role, so that we're getting that wisdom from the male and female perspective. I think it's important for us to have people that are in our peer group that can fulfill that role of,
That's
appointed.
you titled that your cohort.
Your cohort, your cohort. These are your people. These are your people.
But sometimes that cohort will agree with everything you say, and they be when you be going down that dangerous road, they be egging you on.
It's true. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you do need to have that one person that will agree with everything that you say. You need somebody to see your heart, hear your soul, and get where you're coming from. You don't always need to have somebody to disagree with you in order for it to be right. Sometimes you need somebody that can agree with you, but you also need that person that can challenge you on your ideas and show you a different way. But just because somebody disagrees with you doesn't mean that they're right.
So let's talk about the younger than you.
The younger than you is so important. Oh my God. I have younger cousins, and I love having conversations with them about how they see their world. That some of them are also entrepreneurs, so to understand how they handle the business. Some of them are parents, so to understand their perspective on parenting and things like that. And a lot of times we talk about how these kids or this generation or whatever the case may be. And a lot of time we have a negative perspective of them because we're only watching them, but we're not talking to them.
Mm. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in listening to the youth. I believe that they're very intriguing. I believe that if you sit back and listen to them and their view of the world, um, they definitely have taken We Not a Monolith to a whole nother level. They're very go getterish. They ain't they just put it this way: we're in a generation where we're kind of like the middle. We're not a baby boomer, and we're not the youth. And there is such a different contrast to what the baby boomers and how they thought and what they gave us to now how the youth think. Their mind is always very mobile, transitional. They ain't being tied down to nothing. Um,
Quentin, thank you for the commercial in between. But I've been working on how Black women love, and this Sunday was the last interview, and I interviewed a young woman who's 25 years old, and she's going through a transformation in her personal journey where she's understanding like who she is and what self-love is and the type of relationship that she wants to have, and how it's important for her to have her son see her being loved as a woman so that he
mm,
has that example. And a lot of the things that she and I were talking about is things that my friends and I have been talking about, but we started that conversation like in our early 40s. She's having that conversation now at 25. And why is she able to have that conversation? Because there's so much information available to them that we didn't have. You know what I mean? And so to have conversations with people her age and younger to understand how are they taking in all of this information and how they're going to make our world better, because she's one to watch.
so with that, we're going to discuss that book that will be coming out in August. because you just gave yourself a beautiful plug. So you're very intrigued and interested for this book and what that will bring to the collection of Crown Rules.
Life transforming. Life transforming.
Good.
And you want to talk about you want to talk about sphere of influence, like in the book, being able to speak to women between 25 and 68 years of age, and to get all of that information myself.
I'm gonna ask you a question in reference to that. You did this book that we're discussing, A Woman's Journey to the Throne, and this book was really your journal that turned into a book. So this was more of
Personal.
your personal, you discovering, you getting back on top of your grind. Um, so when we talk about Crown Rules too, how black men love and getting all this information and putting this book together, and then now doing the behind the scenes with Crown Rules 3, how black women love. Do you feel like, yeah, I'm compiling this information and I'm trying to bring forth a great book with a lot of information, but do you feel like this work that you've done and decided the journey that you decided to do, because that's a lot to be listening to stories and people's ups, downs, and everything in between. Do you feel like you're growing from it?
Yes,
Explain that, because a lot of times, and it has become your sphere of influence,
it
to a
has.
sort. Because if somebody is negative and has a negative uh, way of just where they're at with their life, I don't want to say negative like they're just a bad person, because nobody's a bad person in my opinion. But if whatever they're going through in life, they got to dump to you. So depending on what's going on in your life in your day, you got to receive all that. How do you handle that?
First of all, I thank God for the inspiration to do this. And a lot of it came out of myself personally being tired of suffering, and then seeing other people suffer when it came to like relationships and just like love, just wanting to know what's the difference, because there has to be a difference, right? So I thank God for the inspiration to want to address that. The second thing is, I'm so grateful for the people who have been willing to participate in the process, because it's a level of vulnerability, Quentin, that I don't even think I've experienced in some of my friendships sometimes. Like, people are just so willing to talk, and it's not bad. It's not all bad. It's just that people are just so willing to speak their heart because they don't have an opportunity to do it.
Mm.
You get so caught up in having to do everything else, and to perform at the job, and to perform on social media, and to perform even in our relationships, and really don't get an opportunity to say what's on our heart. And it's like that we set that, me and whoever I'm interviewing, we create that space, and just to see how vulnerable they're willing to be, and how open they're willing to be, and then the lessons that I get to receive from it. And then not only that I understand that every emotion that I have felt or am feeling, they have felt too.
I'm gonna ask you, and do you think that when you're discussing this, right, and we know that Crown Rules, How Black Women Love was your first book, and then now the second book, now it's the third book. Do you think that, have you ever got to a point where you're sitting there and you're, for this book, let's just use this book for example, and an individual is telling you some stuff, and did you ever say to yourself, and I know this, you don't want to do this. I know you don't want to do what I'm about to say. Did you want to do it? Like, yo, why don't you read one of the books? Because I think if you was to read my first book, Understanding Your Journey, like you wouldn't be to the point, because like you're going on a journey. for example, let me explain a little different. You're doing book 1 work, doing research for book 3.
So, that happened a few times during this last interview process. That happened a few times where I got to see that people have not allowed themselves to be honest and with what their challenges are, and that they have not allowed themselves to understand that it's their past experiences that create their future conditions, and that if they're not satisfied with them, that something has to change, and what has to change is them, right? And I will tell you that I had not had a drink since May of last year. But one weekend I had to crack a bottle.
A vintage bottle.
A vintage bottle. And it's like, sis, like, and I had this conversation with someone else too. They were like, once you get to a certain point, or you have self-love, that you're gonna attract love to yourself. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna attract love to yourself, but you're gonna attract a lot of other things too. And you have to be able to discern what's for you and what's not for you. And if you're living in old trauma and old wounds and old ways of thinking, you're not going to be able to discern.
Let me ask you, and I'm kind of the guy. I kind of feel like Crown Rules 3 was something that I kind of spoke into existence.
You did,
and I'm gonna say it. Crown Rules 4. And I already know the title, and we'll discuss the title after this show. But for everybody in the chat, make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and spread the love. Subscribe, like I said, share the page, share the group, share everything we doing. You may not get nothing out of it yourself, but maybe someone else may get something out of it. And enjoy and be part of the discussion of what we discuss every Thursday at 9:00. And the best way to purchase, thank you. I just got that subscription, Universal Knowledge. I really appreciate that. Thanks for subscribing.
Hi,
make sure you guys, like I said, spread the message of what we do every Thursday with discussing Julia's book in her Crown Rules series. And we just try to have open and honest conversation in reference to these issues that we discuss every Thursday. With that, you guys stay blessed, stay up, have a great week, holiday weekend for those that celebrate the holiday.
Yes.
And be safe.
Yes.
I see a lot of things when I'm out there on them roads. Be very, very careful. Don't be in a rush to get to nowhere. You'll get there when you're supposed to get there. With that, have a great week.
So often we are referred to as queen. But have you ever stopped to admire the beauty of your crown? Let's talk Crown Rules. Thursday nights at 9 p.m. with your hosts Quentin Ford and myself, Julia Dozier,